Game 5 of the FIDE World Championship match presented by Google. Well, it started off with some intrigue. We were all very curious as to what Gukesh with the white pieces would open up with. In the end, he went for a repeat in Game 1, which is beginning with the E-pawn, picking up 2 squares, and perhaps to Gukesh's surprise, Ding actually copied that strategy and played the French defense, something that he did in Game 1. That's right, it brought Ding success in Game 1. The French defense he won with the black pieces. He tried to repeat that, but it was actually Gukesh who switched things up, played something new. First of all, he chose the exchange variation, exchanging pawns. It's totally symmetrical. It continues that way until this moment, where Ding breaks the symmetry. He pushes his pawn forward, and here Gukesh trying to maintain the tension, but we quickly saw queens disappear. And a transition straight from the opening, almost down to the endgame here. Perhaps Gukesh was surprised here and chose to play this queen threat check just to kind of take the game into something that he was familiar with in terms of concept, because suddenly it becomes all about timings and putting the pieces on the right squares. So once the queens disappeared, here was a very new move, which is very natural actually, just capturing the queen with a king. And the whole idea here for Ding was to quickly develop and actually castle superficially here. You drop your king back. Next move, you've already activated as black, especially this rook in the center, which would then appear on an open file. So here, Gukesh chose to trade off that rook, quickly trading off these pieces. It looked very slow, very kind of strategic at this point, but there was so much beneath the surface, and the key move, I believe, was actually in this position by Ding. Yeah, the Ding went really into the tank at this point, because as David mentioned, there is so much danger. White was just threatening to move the rook over to e1, jump in with the knight to e5, and just cause pressure there in the middle of the board. So Ding, he understood this and realized that now was a time to act, so he just decides at this point to move the knight to the edge of the board, and this was a really, really clever move. Yeah, clever for multiple reasons. One, the knight might jump in, which we actually see shortly in the game. Second one is that now knight to e5 will always come with less venom. And maybe most importantly, pawn to g5 is going to hunt down, track down this bishop. For example, if white just makes a move, pawn to g5, and black would have gained the bishop pair, knight for bishop exchange. All of the pressure disappeared from black's position, and actually Ding might have been in the driver's seat here. So we instead saw a check from Gukesh in this position. Yeah, and here he made a very committal decision. Yeah, it was surprising, but at the same time, very much in the style of Gukesh. You know, he goes for the most principal move, which is g2, g4, just attacking the knight and asking it where is it going to go, and presenting Ding with a lot more choice. Ding took a pause, as always, very carefully put his knight in the middle of the board on f4. Yeah, a great square for the black knight. There's one downside, however, it walks into a pin. The spin is actually slightly troublesome. It's hard to break. This black bishop is undefended. There's also a big threat of white knight jumping into the center, just confusing black, actually breaking that tension and targeting this knight. But Ding had seen everything in advance. I really love this move. I think one of the classiest moves of the game, knight to b6. The knight gets out of the way and actually has plans later to jump towards white's queen side, and also opens up this bishop, which was previously fast asleep. It's a beautiful switchback because all the action is happening on the king side in the middle of the board, and Ding just goes the other direction with a knight. And it's setting up some lovely ideas of a knight eventually jumping into the d3 square, but first, Ding has to untangle his pieces. So after knight to b6, here is where Gukesh played on to g5, another really critical decision, because he doesn't care about squares. It's modern-day chess. He just wants to go active with his pieces and start to trouble black's king. So here Ding captured that pawn, and after knight takes pawn, well, Ding had to be very aware because Gukesh was threatening knight to h7, check, and oh dear, if you allow that, and you allow a rook to appear on the e8, you're going to be in big, big trouble. Yeah, checkmate, threatened within 3 moves there. So Ding very wisely guarded his back rank. He covers the square now, the white rook cannot infiltrate. And very surprisingly, Gukesh jumped back, so actually losing 2 moves with his knight. Just content in the fact that he's next going to jump into the center of the board. He's still solid enough Here, Gukesh, despite the fact he has two isolated pawns on the king side, and Ding, I think, was happy to simplify, happy to try and get more pieces off the board, banking on black's long-term advantages, especially on this queen side, having a bit more space on that side of the board, yeah? So both players actually playing in fantastic ways, Ding playing very principled, and Gukesh just utilizing his creativity. So he naturally says now he doesn't want to trade off rooks on Ding's terms, instead he jumps in with the knight. And here, after bishop takes knight, we saw a surprising turn of events here, because we were expecting rook takes bishop, offering up a trade of rooks, and trying to displace knight on f4 on white's own terms. Yeah, and likely that would have led to a far less dramatic draw. But after, pawn takes instead, a moment of discomfort for Gukesh. After the black knight jumped into d3, this was actually a triple attack hitting the rook, hitting these two pawns as well. Suddenly it dawned on Gukesh, he'd missed something, he's miscalculated. The knight had to be removed after a lot of thought. He did take that piece off, and here, I think his original plan was to push the pawn forward to b3 to control this black knight to make sure it cannot jump into white's half of the board. The downside, though, is this weakens the c3 square, and what he may have overlooked is that the rook slides across, hitting this pawn. The white rook defends it, but pin and win here for Ding. You push this pawn forward, the white pawn is stuck, has to move forward, and now the black knight can finally activate itself due to the fact the white rook is undefended on c1. If the black knight ever lands on c3, it's got so many targets in sight, and Gukesh had to switch gears here. Yeah, he's totally did that in such a brilliant way, actually, finding f3. And here, Ding potentially could have just moved the rook up to e6, but that's a very much computer-like suggestion. And instead, Ding played the very human knight to c4, getting a protected pass pawn. Knight takes knight ensued. But look at this, Gukesh just calculated so accurately and precisely here, lifting up the rook to the middle of the board, targeting c4, willing to drop a pawn with bishop c6 as played by Ding, and now here, rook to d4, keeping an eye on the pass pawn. Yeah, we should mention there's one trap. This was a great move, great defense by Gukesh. He couldn't get greedy here, however, after rook takes pawn, because the back rook simply slides behind its own pawn, and promotion now is guaranteed. White loses material, just trying to stop this pawn from marching. Instead, rook to d4 was based on the fact that it buys white one move, and one move is enough here. Yes, the black bishop can take this pawn, but now he gets his king closer to this black pass pawn, and here Ding made a strategy. He blundered here with moving the bishop to c6, and here, this is where Gukesh simply captured the pawn on c4. There were some trades, and the rooks just simply disappeared off, and the opposite kind of bishop endgame is simply a draw.